y'all. Welcome to the My Read a Minute. Um, First, I just want to say everything on my channel is alleged in my opinion and done for entertainment purposes only. Now, what I'm about to go over, it's actually the lawsuit that was filed, I believe, on June the 30th by Clayton Howard. He is now suing Cassie Ventura and Diddy because he was one of the male entertainers that they used to hire for their escapades. Anyway, he has filed like a 48-page document illustrating all that went on. Let me see if I can pull it up. This is crazy. This is wild. The circus is not over because I'm sure it's going to be more. And actually, when I was out there looking at other things, I found some other cases, other filed lawsuits. They were closed because one person was filing against Diddy and Cassandra, and she was suing for $10.2 trillion for damages, punitive damages. I said 10.2 trillion? It was one of them handwritten type lawsuit. Girl, I was like, wow. Anyway, her name was Danielle something. Anyway, they closed that out. Clearly, they threw that out. That was crazy. It says the preliminary statement. It says Plaintiff Clayton Howard brings this civil action against defendants Sean Combs and Cassandra Ventura arising from an 8-year period of systematic actual exploitation, trafficking, and abuse that occurred between approximately 2009 and 2019. This case exposes the darker truth behind the wide publicized narrative surrounding defendant Ventura's recent civil settlement and the ongoing criminal prosecution of defendant Combs. Okay, it talks about who they are. He's a rapper. She's a singer, actress. Okay, so let's see. I need to get to the actual factuals. Let's see. Factual allegations is what I want. It says Mr. Howard met Combs and Ventura under fraudulent circumstances. Mr. Howard, who they call Dave, met Miss Ventura, who was going by Jackie Starr, in late 2009. Miss Ventura, who identified herself as Jackie Starr, invited Mr. Howard, or Dave, to the London hotel located in New York City to serve as a male companion and provide her with time and company in the privacy of her hotel room for an agreed upon hourly rate. Miss Ventura attempted to conceal her identity through the use of makeup, a large red wig, and dim lighting in the room, which created poor visual conditions. Miss Ventura failed to inform Mr. Howard prior to the meeting that another party would be present. Immediately after greeting Mr. Howard, Miss Ventura offered him alcohol and a Mary J. Cigarette, then instructed him to be seated in the living room. The two parties spoke for approximately about 30 minutes while becoming familiar and relaxed. After approximately 30 minutes, Miss Ventura asked to see his personal identification for safety purposes so she would know who he really was. Having nothing to hide and wanting to make a woman he assumed alone comfortable, he provided Miss Ventura with his driver's license, revealing his true identity. Miss Ventura informed Mr. Howard of her intentions by standing and requesting that he expose his genitals. Under the influence of substances provided, Mr. Howard agreed to Miss Ventura's request as she claimed to be impressed. Miss Ventura then informed Mr. Howard that they were not alone and that her husband was upstairs, but assured him that the situation was acceptable because her husband had consented to her having a male companion visit to see where things might lead. Miss Ventura explained that she and her husband were participants in the lifestyle and that her husband preferred to watch her be pleasured by men with larger male reproductive organs. Miss Ventura stated that she preferred men with darker complexions, complimenting Mr. Howard's complexion before excusing herself to retrieve her husband so that activities could begin. Miss Ventura retrieved Mr. Combs, whom she introduced as her husband and presented to Mr. Howard under the alias Frank. Mr. Combs greeted Mr. Howard with indifference, then retrieved baby oil and Astroglide lubricant, both of which had been positioned on a platter on the center table. Mr. Combs then retreated a darkened corner of the room where poor lighting made it difficult to observe his movements clearly. Mr. Howard was instructed not to address Mr. Combs directly and to speak only to Miss Ventura. Mr. Combs concealed his identity by wearing a baseball cap pulled over his eyebrows and a cloth tied around his nose and mouth, which obscured his facial features and made him unrecognizable. When Mr. Combs did speak, it was to inquire whether Miss Ventura was acceptable or if she needed anything. Mr. Combs also provided direction to both Mr. Howard and Miss Ventura, regulating the pace of their physical contact, as will be further explained in subsequent paragraphs further on. Okay, so it says this first encounter served as the plaintiff's initial education into what would be required of him by the defendants, with all subsequent encounters followed an identical structure that forms the basis of the descriptions of all encounters described hereafter within this complaint. During each encounter, Mr. Howard had no autonomy. He was required to follow orders and was expected not to disobey. Financial compensation was used as a form of dominance once Mr. Howard was committed to any activity within the encounter. Mr. Howard was instructed by Miss Ventura to remove all his clothing upon entry into the suite and to surrender his clothing and phones to Miss Ventura. Mr. Howard's cell phone was turned off and surrendered with his clothing to Miss Ventura, which prevented him from leaving by choice without compromising his safety. Some suites required keys to access the floors and had no access to stairwells without triggering alarms, making escape difficult. Mr. Howard was instructed by Miss Ventura to apply baby oil to his nude body. When Mr. Howard applied the oil to his hand and began to distribute it evenly, Miss Ventura would use her own bottle to saturate Mr. Howard's chest, abdomen, and arms with oil before stepping closer and attempting to apply it evenly herself. Miss Ventura often sprayed Mr. Howard with oil during application to make distribution over his skin easier. The defendant structured these encounters into 4 phases. Number 1 was no touch. Number 2 was soft foreplay. Number 3 was fellatio. And 4 was intercourse, which was directed by Mr. Combs for the purpose of controlling Miss Ventura's arousal and timing of climax. How the heck he want to control everything? Then you're going to control, don't go too fast, don't go too slow. Speed it up a little bit, slow it down. Dude, how can anybody get off on that? Oh my God, he's a weirdo. A weirdo. During these phases, Mr. Howard had no input or the ability to offer suggestions and was simply expected to comply. Through the use of manipulation and financial coercion, Mr. Howard would remain in these phases for hours, with each individual stage lasting for over an hour. Miss Ventura controlled the start of the activity and would seek Mr. Combs' permissions regarding when she could progress to the next stage. If Mr. Combs was not ready, he would refuse permission, but he often granted Miss Ventura permission to masturbate if she requested. Once the activity began, Mr. Combs controlled its progression and pace, seeking to control Miss Ventura's desire while pleasuring himself rather than directly participating. These prolonged masturbation sessions frequently caused skin tears and scabs on Mr. Howard's penis, causing him severe pain and scarring. While Mr. Howard stood covered in baby oil, Miss Ventura and Mr. Combs would masturbate while watching him, which gave him a constant feeling of uneasiness and uncertainty. So they would be sitting in there for hours, high off of whatever they were taking, self pleasuring themselves while looking at him, both of them. And nobody thought, or Cassie never knew, or she didn't care that her man was pleasuring himself over another man, because that's what that sounds like. This is crazy. And what thug? I would not. Oh God, he's horrible. If this has any truth to it, this is all alleged. These are just allegations. But I believe it. It's too exact. It's too specific. It's not like it's following the thread of other people or other encounters. This, I believe. I believe this. Wow. While Mr. Howard was ordered to stand nude, both defendants would pleasure themselves to the point of climax. Both defendants would be intoxicated using substances and alcohol to alter their moods and keep them awake. Some of these substances were Schedule 1 narcotics, including amphetamines and opiates. The specific drugs used included ecstasy, GHB, ketamine, cocaine, and MDMA, which is Molly, and Mary J. Miss Ventura, in the earlier and middle years, was extremely physical with Mr. Howard and would orally pleasure him for periods exceeding 1 hour at times. Dehydrated from drugs, lack of water, and constant engagement in oral sex, Miss Ventura would often perform oral until she had to stop when her jaw became sore from the prolonged activity. When intercourse was to occur, Miss Ventura's arousal would be so heightened that she would often beg Mr. Combs to allow her to engage. Mr. Howard was directed to engage in actual contact with Miss Ventura until she climaxed and was only allowed to stop once Miss Ventura reached climax. Once Mr. Combs consented to actual contact, Miss Ventura controlled the degree of intimacy, including kissing, the intensity of kissing, and whether she would engage in unprotected acts, as will be described in later paragraphs. Once the climax of Miss Ventura occurred, the cycle would be repeated. One encounter with Miss Ventura would consist of 15 to 30 individual sessions, each including all 4 stages. The number of sessions also depended on the number of days Mr. Howard would be detained until the defendants were ready to return his phone and clothing and release him. So he was stuck there for days on end while they were rugged fueled, because I believe most of this was because they were high out of their minds. Mind you, they were sober enough to know that's what they wanted. But the fact that they kept going and going and going and going, they didn't even probably realize that it had been 3 or 4 days. I feel like that's how high they were. And they didn't want to ever come down. So they kept, giving themselves whatever it was that they needed to give themselves. And what felt like probably 4 or 5 hours, it was like 3 or 4 days. Like, dude, that's crazy. That is crazy to me. If Mr. Howard attempted to leave, he would be coerced by Mr. Ventura until waiting or ignored if he knocked on the suite's master bedroom door seeking to retrieve his items to leave. So they would be in the master bedroom. They would be she would be moving on to just them having their intimate time. They would leave him out there by himself and he wouldn't have nothing to even put his stuff on so he could leave. They didn't want him to go. That is crazy until they were ready for their second act or third act. Then this one says Miss Ventura manipulates Mr. Howard into an MDMA use and unprotected acts. During the trial testimony of Miss Ventura, Mr. Howard heard her statements regarding Mr. Combs and how she allegedly had been forced to have unprotected acts with male entertainers. Miss Ventura claimed to have never wanted such activities and to only have engaged in them as a result of Mr. Combs' abuse and attempts to blackmail her. Although this allegation was substantiated in one instance during the trial, it is not the same in all It also does not completely substantiate all of Miss Ventura's claims of force and coercion, as every instance is not the same. Mr. Howard oh, sorry. Let me see. Mr. Howard confidently asserts that Mr. Combs did not force Miss Ventura to engage in actual encounters after the overdose she experienced while in his presence. It was Miss Ventura who begged for the encounter despite Mr. Combs' repeated attempts to end the night due to the overdose. Mr. Howard's confident confidently asserts that it was Miss Ventura who initiated unprotected acts with him, and Mr. Combs had no knowledge of it occurring until it was underway. Once Mr. Combs, who was observing the activity, noticed that there was no condom being used, he stopped the activity and confronted Miss Ventura about her actions. In response, Miss Ventura lied to Mr. Combs, falsely informing him that she had reviewed Mr. Howard's STD test results and had confirmed he was completely clean. Mr. Howard, immediately conscious of the lie, interrupted and told Mr. Combs that the truth, which was not that Mr. Ventura had told him, was false. However, Mr. Howard then provided him actual STT test results to Mr. Combs directly from his email. Once unprotected acts began, Mr. Howard would be pressured into continuing it by both parties. Mr. Howard was told he would be an exclusive partner of Miss Ventura, and it was agreed he would be compensated in exchange for clean test results and continued exceptional service. The arrangement was agreed to after Mr. Howard was coerced into participating in an orgy with Mr. Ventura with Miss Ventura and Mr. Combs and another male provider named Daniel Phillip. The goal of the orgy was to determine who would please Miss Ventura the longest without issue, Mr. Howard or Mr. Phillip. The two men were offered substances and expected to perform continuously, taking turns with Miss Ventura, who was an eager and willing participant. This encounter lasted for nearly 2 days before it ended. When Mr. Howard outlasted Mr. Phillip, he was declared the winner and the exclusive arrangement was proposed. Rug was a major component of the encounters during the majority of the meetings. And I know that. They had to be rug fueled. There's no way that somebody could sit there and go on and on for days and days and not be high on anything. You are clearly numb. And at some point, you didn't even feel nothing anymore after you being so high off of all those different types of substances. Yeah, they didn't want Diddy to go to jail. They just wanted to humiliate him. Because this right here, you know. Why didn't well, this was filed in California, so maybe New York didn't have it. I don't know. But I'm sure, my gosh. Whew, that's a lot. Mr. Howard did not engage in harder drugs for the first 2 years. Okay, wait. Mr. Howard didn't engage in harder drugs for the first 2 years until they were offered to him by Miss Ventura. Mr. Howard, seeking to stay awake in response to repeated requests to satisfy Miss Ventura, began to have difficulty staying awake as more as was demanded of him. Miss Ventura offered Mr. Howard ecstasy, claiming it to be light and harmless in the doses she would provide. Mr. Howard would learn later from Miss Ventura that she had tripled his dosage in order to get him freaky, as he recalls, and increase the intensity of the encounter. Believing the two were in a monogamous relationship since the exit of Mr. Phillip, always receiving clean results when taking STD tests, and through the and through the inducement of rugs and alcohol, the unprotected acts continued. It says Mr. Howard impregnated Miss Ventura, who ultimately decided to unalive or terminate the pregnancy. She was unable to locate Mr. Howard for a period of time. Even after terminating the pregnancy, Miss Ventura sought to have unprotected acts during the encounters for years after. After reconnecting when separated for almost 8 months, Miss Ventura confessed to Mr. Howard at New York City Gramercy Park Hotel that she had unalived or terminated a pregnancy created by him. Despite the revelation, Miss Ventura insisted on unprotected sex very encounter during that very encounter, which lasted several days as the two reconnected after the separation. It was after his victory in the encounter with Daniel Phillip that Miss Ventura drugged Mr. Howard with a triple dose of ecstasy and manipulated him into engaging in unprotected sex. Mr. Howard is rugged by Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura. Mr. Howard recalls being rugged by Miss Ventura, who admitted to doing so when asked once Mr. Howard contacted her again after the initial incident. Specifically, Mr. Howard was given ecstasy by Miss Ventura after he complained of exhaustion due to the demands placed upon him during the encounters. Instead of providing coffee or an energy drink, Miss Ventura retreated to the bedroom and returned with an ecstasy pill. When Mr. Howard complained about his disdain for pills, Miss Ventura crushed the pill and put it in a drink she prepared, informing Mr. Howard she had only included a small dosage. Having known Miss Ventura for several years at this point, Mr. Howard trusted her and has consumed the drink prepared by Miss Ventura. Mr. Howard recalls feeling hot and beginning to sweat uncontrollably within several moments of the consumption. When he complained of this to Miss Ventura, her response was a passionate kiss before she aggressively grabbed hold of his penis and placed it within her mouth. You know what? I'm starting to think something. I don't know. Some of the stuff it seems like it's a little bit far fetched, but it's not a reach. But I mean, I just feel like it might be some skepticism here. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because maybe he's going after Cassie because he knows too many people that are going after Diddy, and because he's filed so late, he probably won't get nothing from Diddy. But if he goes after Cassie, he might get some of her change because she just got hers, and ain't nobody really, mm, looking for her but him. So maybe this was created because he wanted to go after Cassie for an easy money grab. Because that sentence I just read about the passionate kiss and how she just grabbed hold of his male part and placed it in her mouth. I don't believe that. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. That part I don't believe. So then they said, Mr. Howard recalls never feeling so intoxicated in his life, with the rug enhancing all of his senses and actual desires. He and Miss Ventura began with condoms, but they were removed by Miss Ventura, who quickly rolled off the protection and pressured unprotected contact, while Mr. Howard's inhibitions had been lowered. Mr. Howard and Miss Ventura were engaged in the encounter for 2 days, while Mr. Combs watched and on occasion engaged in contact with Miss Ventura. When the parties were all exhausted, Mr. Howard was given back his belongings and allowed to leave. He was compensated with additional funds due to the conditions caused by dehydration and lack of sleep. Mr. Howard left confused, dehydrated, and disoriented, ultimately pulling his vehicle over and parking on the side of a grocery store. He woke up hours later, weak and sweating. He was able to get help by calling an Uber, which brought him home to his girlfriend. He had a girlfriend? Oh, God. They say he spent 3 days recovering from his encounter. I guess that might have been before Diddy gave their workers IV treatments to get them back into the swing of things. After Mr. Howard confronted Miss Ventura during the following encounter, she confessed to rugging him. Following the confession, he did not accept beverages from her except 3 times he accepted a drink over the next 5 years. The final drink led to a physical assault on Miss Ventura. Mr. Combs rugged Mr. Howard. So Mr. Howard was rugged by Mr. Combs in the Trump property of Columbus Circle in New York City. During the encounter, Mr. Combs offered Mr. Howard a pink substance in a small plastic bag he described as pink MDMA or pink Molly. Mr. Howard, who only indulged in drugs with Miss Ventura, was introduced to both Molly and ecstasy by Miss Ventura for purposes of enhancing their actual encounters. Mr. Howard's knowledge of the designer drug, I'm sorry, Mr. Howard's knowledge of the designer rug was insufficient and therefore he did not trust the unknown substance at first when offered. Mr. Combs began to hint at Miss Ventura's insistence on indulging and explaining she may be angry if he did not partake. Mr. Combs had never offered Mr. Howard rugs before this point, and the two had developed a mutual respect during the years of contact connected by Miss Ventura. Against his better judgment, Mr. Howard agreed to consume a small dosage, hoping it would satisfy the demand and end the matter of the night. Mr. Combs retreated to the master suite, and within minutes, Mr. Howard recalls becoming extremely warm before he began to sweat uncontrollably. He began to have violent spasms, which curled him over, forcing him to crawl into a nearby bathroom. At no time did either Miss Ventura or Mr. Combs exit the master suite. Once in the bedroom, Mr. Howard began to vomit uncontrollably. The pain from his stomach was intense, and he could not stop the sweating no matter how much he wiped. The vomiting lasted several minutes until there was nothing left to regurgitate. Mr. Howard lay dizzy and weak on the bathroom floor for several minutes before he regained his strength and stand and approached the door. It was Mr. Combs who came upon the weakened and disoriented Mr. Howard first. Noticing the visible change, Mr. Combs inquired about Mr. Howard's condition. Mr. Howard recalls being afraid to confess his condition, but he began to feel so sick that he confessed his condition to Mr. Combs. Mr. Combs examined him briefly and agreed he did not look good. Mr. Combs turned to enter the master suite and asked Mr. Howard to wait. Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura exited the suite together. When Miss Ventura asked what was wrong, Mr. Howard informed her that what Mr. Combs had given him was responsible. Miss Ventura asked Mr. Combs what he had given Mr. Howard, and Mr. Combs responded was the pink shit. When Mr. Howard replied that Mr. Combs told him it was Molly, it was Miss Ventura who informed him that the substance he had been given was not Molly. Mr. Howard was given around $1,500 and released. So he managed to exit the hotel and walk over 40 city blocks in December, conditioning, sweaty, uncontrollably, and afraid. Finally, around Union Square, located in Lower Manhattan, he regained enough of himself to call a friend and ask for help. He was picked up on a side block and taken home to recover. Mr. Howard was flown by the special request of Mr. Ventura from New York City to Miami, Florida, and to Los Angeles, California numerous times to entertain Miss Ventura. Miss Ventura would directly call Mr. Howard for encounters and on occasion threatened or pressured Mr. Howard to become available. The trafficking became shortly after Mr. Howard's victory over Daniel Phillip, the other male provider whom he was pitted against during a exathon, as later described by Miss Ventura. As part of this reward, he began to receive perks like travel and small gifts, even given to him by Miss Ventura. Mr. Howard would be contacted and asked if he was available to fly out to a location. In the beginning, it was exciting and flattering to experience such an attractive woman hungry for his attention. Over time, Mr. Howard became aware that it was much more than that. The first instance of trafficking occurred when Mr. Howard was flown to Miami from New York City after a call from Miss Ventura. It was cold in New York City, and Miss Ventura called on a freezing winter day seemed like a gift from Mr. Howard. The flight was booked using JetBlue, which Miss Ventura paid for, and Mr. Howard was off to Miami. Mr. Howard met the couple at the Mandarin Hotel, located in the Miami area. Mr. Howard checked into a suite under the name Frank Black, which was given to him by Miss Ventura during the ride from the airport to the property. During all instances of the trafficking, Mr. Howard would be present to hotel staff as security for Bad Boy Records. Presented. I'm sorry. Mr. Howard would be presented to hotel staff as security for Bad Boy Records. Miss Ventura, and Mr. Combs. Mr. Howard would spend days servicing Miss Ventura, wanting to be released so he could go home to his normal life. He was asked to come for one more day, but he was not released until 3 days later. Mr. Howard was inconvenienced but felt intimidated by the lifestyle of the couple, so he endured, hoping to be released sooner than he was. Mr. Howard would be flown to Miami many times when he was introduced into drugs use, alcohol consumption, and prolonged unprotected sexual activity with Miss Ventura. Miss Ventura repeated, I'm supposed to call her Cassie, I don't keep saying. Cassie repeatedly stated to Clayton how he hated condoms and they irritated her. It was for this reason she was reluctant to use condoms, and she would state that irritated her and it created a smell. I think I'm just going to pick this up at a later time. I'm on page 24. I'm going to have to put this in two parts because it's a lot. And that way I can read the next 20 pages tomorrow. So, y'all, this is a lot. I feel like I believe Clayton is not really anything we probably haven't heard before, but why the prosecution didn't use this type of stuff, we don't know. If I could pull it up, they could pull it up, right? Anyway, y'all, please like, share, subscribe, leave down in the comments what you think about this lawsuit so far. Yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy, and it's firsthand, knowledge coming directly from one of the entertainers, as they call it. And I believe it. It sounds so true. Anyway, with that being said, everyone be blessed. Peace.